Hey there guys, how are you today and welcome to my preview of the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Of course, the circuit in Baku came onto the F1 calendar in 2016 where the race was won by Nico Rosberg, and at that point it was actually the European Grand Prix, but then in 2017 it changed to being the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and of course Daniel Ricciardo won there last season, and now we're going for the third Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So, of course, 27 saw a pretty hectic race, with Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, the two championship rivals, coming to blows on the safety car, with Vettel accusing Hamilton of brake checking him. And the other event, of course, in last year's Grand Prix, is Lance Stroll getting a podium in the Williams. Pretty big shock there. So, what will happen in 2018? It's almost too difficult to predict, because of this being a street circuit where you can overtake. There could be big crashes, lots of action. Who knows what will happen? And this could be one head of a Grand Prix. For the Grand Prix, tyre supplier Pirelli are bringing the soft, the super soft, and the ultra soft for the Grand Prix. So on paper, this should be good news for Ferrari and bad news for Mercedes, as Mercedes tend to be harder on their tyres and struggle with the softer compounds. Of course, going into this weekend's Grand Prix, there will be media discussions about the announcement of the new 2019 regulations and then the ones for 2021. I will probably have to do a video on these at some point, but as for 2021, the disadvantage that, as for 2019, the disadvantage that the heavier drivers such as Nico Hülkenberg have currently, in terms of their extra weight still counting to the weight of the car, is going to be reduced, and the weight of the driver is going to be separate from the weight of the car, which should help drivers such as Nico Hülkenberg. In other news, the rules regarding fuel usage are going to be relaxed, which will allow the drivers to push their car a bit more, but I would argue that the teams have got so efficient with their fuel, I don't know how big a deal fuel saving is in modern F1 now. And also there's going to be new gloves to improve safety, which is of course good news. So yeah, I will do a video about these new rules and the 2021 rules in more detail very soon, but those are the rules going into 2019, which will be discussed in the media load this weekend. But now let's go on to preview the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So the place to start is probably with the Constructor Championship leaders, Mercedes. They're of course leading the championship by only 1 point, following the Chinese Grand Prix, but I'm not very optimistic for them this weekend. First of all, as I said just before, I reckon they're going to struggle with the tyres this weekend, because of course they are very hard on their tyres, which means they tend to struggle with the softer tyres, although they are going pretty conservative with tyre choice, with Hamilton bringing 2 of the soft tyres rather than more super soft or ultra soft, while obviously Bottas and Vettel are only bringing 1 of those tyres. But in general, Hamilton has had his struggles on this circuit over the last 2 years, and I'm pretty sure this is the only current racing track that he hasn't actually won at. And of course, he's going to be pretty determined to change this weekend. But despite being a Hamilton fan and all that, I don't think it's going to happen. He seems to be struggling at the moment in the qualifying and the race, even in comparison to his teammate Bottas. It's not like it's just Mercedes has a bad car, but even if they had a bad car, he should be beating his teammate. But he's not beating his teammate. So he is really struggling, and I'm not very optimistic for Lewis Hamilton this weekend. I reckon he's going to have quite a poor season. While moving on to his teammate, Valtteri Bottas, who in contrast is having a pretty strong season. You hear a strong race in Baku last season. Of course, he had a puncture on lap 1 after an incident with fellow Finnish driver Kimi Räikkönen, where he was able to come back to claim, I believe, 2nd place from Lance Stroll. And in general, Bottas had a great start to 2018, and he'll be hoping to get a Grand Prix victory this weekend to put himself at the centre of what is looking like a really close and multi-team championship fight. It's certainly looking like Italian team Ferrari are the fastest team in the 2018 Formula 1 season, but obviously they have been a bit inconsistent this season with some mistakes and some bad luck, especially for Vettel in China. So they'll be hoping for a very consistent and strong weekend for both drivers in Azerbaijan. So of course there are lots of rumours about them always threatening to leave the sport. I think that they generally reckon they're more important than the sport, and they seem every few weeks to threaten even that they're going to quit the sport, which is just getting annoying. It's getting quite boring, to be honest. It's becoming like a classic F1 joke that Ferrari are going to threaten to quit Formula One, which is ridiculous. But hopefully, we're going to stop talking about that this weekend and focus on their on-track action. And Vettel seems to be performing well all parts of all weekends, and surely he has to be considered the favourite this weekend, despite never winning on the circuit in Baku. While Raikkonen will be angry at the team, furthering the way they sacrificed his race to try to help Vettel in China, especially considering that ended up with nothing happening after Vettel's collision with Verstappen. But you know what, in terms of pace this season, particularly in qualifying, not so much in the race, the two drivers have been close, and Kimi will at least want to challenge his teammate for the win at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Red Bull, of course, won the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, although that was a bit lucky, but they also won the Chinese Grand Prix this year in the last Grand Prix, so they do look like they are on the pace this weekend, and this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how Red Bull do on a very different track to the Chinese one, and they'll be hoping to challenge for the win in what could easily be a crazy Grand Prix. But of course, one of the ways that Red Bull have to really keep something down is reliability. That's a big issue for Red Bull still. It did come up in China because of course they had an issue in FP3. They were simply lucky it didn't happen in the race. So that's got to be their main aim this weekend, to make sure they go through the whole Grand Prix weekend without any reliability issues. While of course there's still lots of attention on Max Verstappen for the wrong reasons. Of course I was past that. I guess I'm kind of part of that by asking if he's the next Pastor Maldonado. But he'll be determined to prove his critics wrong this weekend, although that could be difficult on the street circuit where overtaking is difficult and crashes are highly likely. So a crash and an overtake and then Max Verstappen normally combine to quite a big crash. That's what we've seen so far this season, and you never know what could happen to Max Verstappen this weekend, and something tells me he's not going to be able to get very far this weekend in proving his critics wrong, despite him really being a high quality Grand Prix driver. McLaren have had to deal with a lot of criticism in the media basically for this whole season, because they were hoping for a much bigger jump in performance than they actually have. And of course one of their big issues is high drag on their car, meaning they're not very fast in a straight line, which I'm guessing, considering the super long straight at the Baku circuit, is going to really hurt them this weekend. But they are going to be bringing a B-spec car to the Spanish Grand Prix, the next Grand Prix, which will hopefully fix this issue. But in general, there are some rumours starting to go around about Alonso quitting the team at the end of the season and quitting Formula One, or moving maybe back to Ferrari. You never know. But this rumour has been going on now for every year, for ages now, so I'm not going to really start commenting on it. I don't think it's very true at all. But Alonso has said that he's very motivated by a Renault engine car, Red Bull of course, winning the Chinese Grand Prix, and considering McLaren have the same engine as Red Bull, you can see why there's lots of criticism of them. But ultimately Alonso has had a strong season, scoring points in all the races. Of course he beat Vettel in the Chinese Grand Prix, so it hasn't been terrible. But I think even a great driver like Alonso is going to struggle to score points this weekend unless he gets some type of luck at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. I would also say that Renault have to be a team that are a little bit disappointed so far this season. And they have come out to the press to say that they are disappointed to still be so far behind the top three teams, especially considering they have an identical engine to the one being ran in the Red Bull. But I guess so that could just be praise of how much of a step forward the top three teams have taken in 2018. Sainz has said he is still learning in the car and from Hulkenberg, and I guess that is a battle to watch this weekend. Can Sainz match and finally beat Hulkenberg? I think so. He was significantly closer in China, so maybe he can make that final step to finally beat Nico Hulkenberg in the Renault this season in Azerbaijan. I don't see why not. I think he's a fantastic driver. I personally think he is better than Nico Hulkenberg, and I'm hoping my viewpoint there is going to be proven right this weekend, and obviously for the rest of the season. Obviously, there is now a lot of attention on the Toro Rosso team following the collision between their two young drivers, Pierre Gasly and Brendan Hartley, at the Chinese Grand Prix. Of course, they say it's a communication issue. We don't know what really happened. It's hard to tell or understand. But they'll be hoping whatever it was has been resolved, and hopefully there's no rift between their two young drivers, because trust me, they're going to need their two drivers to work together to get up this grid. And I guess with the long straight here at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, really long straight where cars go over 200 miles an hour, the Honda engine, I suppose, is likely to struggle, since it tends to struggle at higher speeds. Although that is kinda what we said before the Bahrain Grand Prix, and Gasly managed to finish fourth, so maybe we shouldn't be too quick to predict, because of course there is a couple of long straights in Bahrain as well, and they were fine, so maybe it's going to be difficult to tell. But I think only a very, very brave man is going to predict the Toro Rosso to be in the points at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. French driver Romain Grosjean, who's of course driving the Haas, is certainly one of the drivers that is struggling at the moment. And sadly, I'd say this is something we almost come to expect. Okay, of course, both drivers were unlucky in Australia, but in Bahrain and China, Magnussen outperformed his teammate Grosjean. I think that was pretty clear. And it sounded like Grosjean had brake issues in China, which he's basically been having now for 2 years in a row. And it looks like now there's going to be a third year of brake issues for Romain Grosjean in the Haas. Pretty sad stuff. I don't know why they can't sort it out. They seem to have a great car, but Romain Grosjean just doesn't seem to know how to use the brakes properly. I don't know what's going on. And he's certainly going to be a driver where there's lots of attention on this weekend. Of course, there was a bit of a fallout in China, where the team asked Grosjean to let Magnussen through as they were on different strategies. That didn't go down very well in Grosjean's part of the garage, and they'll be hoping for a united team this weekend. And really, Haas, if they want to be the fourth best team in Formula 1, need both their drivers to be performing at the highest level constantly. Sauber Alfa Romeo are a team that are surely hoping to benefit or gain from any kind of crazy Grand Prix this weekend. Of course, there can be lots of crashes, lots of safety cars based on last year's race, so maybe they'll be hoping to benefit and get some points. Of course, last season, Pascal Wehrlein, who for reasons I still don't understand, isn't at the team anymore, got points for them at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in 2017. Well done there. So maybe Sauber will be hoping to repeat this year from Ericsson or Leclerc. Probably more likely Ericsson, based on what we've seen so far this season, to consolidate their 8th place in the championship. Of course, there is going to be, as we go on, increasing attention on Leclerc, as he's considered a future Ferrari driver, but he seems to be struggling. Of course, he had that weird spin in China, and can he get onto the pace? Can he at least beat Ericsson? Not beating Ericsson, for an F1 driver, you must be pretty poor, in my opinion, anyway. So Leclerc will have to improve a lot this weekend. And in general, I would say this Grand Prix could be a chance for the team to score some points and to consolidate their 8th place in the Constructors' Championship. Force India are kinda in the same category as teams maybe like McLaren or Sauber or Toro Rosso, who may need some luck to score some points this weekend. Of course, their car tends to be pretty good in the straight line, and with the Mercedes engine, they might have some great speed trap figures, which could help them this weekend. But I reckon they're going to need some luck to get some good points this weekend to move them up the constructors' table. And I guess they're really just now waiting for the Spanish Grand Prix for some updates to really get their season moving and to try to somehow defend their P4 from last season in the Constructors' Championship. But I don't expect much from Force India this weekend overall, sadly. Finally, we have to talk about Williams, of course. They are really struggling this season, and I have discussed that a lot on my channel, and I don't really want to dwell on it. But former driver Felipe Massa has said that the team are paying the price for putting money ahead of performance in terms of driver choices. Possibly, is a bit of salt, as the young kids would say, for him losing his seat last season to Sergei Sirotkin. ultimately they do have the slowest car as well on the grid, or maybe just the slowest drivers. And both Stroll and Sorokin will have to do their best to move the team forward. The team have said that they should blame the team rather than the actual drivers, but I think there is some question marks about that in the paddock. But I guess so, like I've said with a few other teams, this is a race for them to try to get into the points. They're still good in a straight line, and it could be a crazy Grand Prix. You can't really tell what's going to happen. That's ultimately the ultimate prediction. We know it's likely to be a pretty crazy Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So now on to my predictions, and I'm going to say Sebastian Vettel is going to dominate this weekend with pole position and a win for the German driver to re-establish his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship. I'm going to go for Daniel Ricciardo to do a shoey and come P2. Verstappen to have maybe a controversial weekend, but get into P3. Raikkonen, P4. Hamilton and Bottas struggle, but Hamilton to beat his teammate, so P5 and P6. Alonso to somehow get into the points in P7. Hulkenberg to beat Sainz by coming P8. Magnussen to get more points, so coming P9. And Sainz to get a point in P10. Tell me your predictions in the comments down below or on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed the Grand Prix, and I'll see you guys next week for my review of the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix.